Let me tell you about Low.
The late 70s were a turning point in David Bowie's life. He decided to move to Berlin in efforts to kick a cocaine addiction, and in the process of doing so, wanted to enlist the talents of musical visionary Brian Eno to make a trio of albums during that time, commonly labeled the Berlin Trilogy. In this time, he crafted some of his most revered and, at the time, most challenging material. He also, as was in his fashion, reinvented himself through the guise of therapy and a myriad of synthetic textures seen in the rising German electronic scene. The result in 1977, he made what I'd consider my favorite album of his and the first of the trilogy. Produced by frequent collaborator Tony Visconti, it is the sonically split, grand in scope, and forward-thinking masterpiece that is his 11th album, Low.
And that's not to say Bowie's catalog isn't obviously full of other classics. Having a discography like his, it's hard to really nail down for a lot of people what their favorite record by that artist is, you know? And that's not to say I don't love Ziggy Stardust or the rest of the Berlin Trilogy or even shit from the 90s like Earthling. I love Earthling a lot. I just think that if I were to pick a favorite Bowie album, it would be Low, and this video is going to really go over why. And of course, the one thing that I truly, really love about this album more than other Bowie projects, and what really sets it apart to me as his best in a lot of ways, is its pacing. I love its uplifting and boisterous and lively A-side paired beautifully with its bleak, somber, very depressing sounding B-side. And I mean, what a hell of an A-side it has, you know? It's got such great instrumentals like Speed of Life and A New Career in a New Town, with the same kind of synthetic atmosphere that coats the B-side, only in such bright, shimmery instances, like on Sound and Vision, that has such a lush, icy synth tone, you know, and the drums are so thunderous. I love how pummeling they are. The drum lines on like Sound and Vision and Be My Wife, paired with a fantastic bass line on Be My Wife. It's just a fun run. No song overstays its welcome. If anything, some songs could be stretched out even more, but they end on such a good note that just sounds like it could go on forever. And there's just so many good sounding tunes in the A-side, and its B-side, you know, the fucking crushing Warzawa with its foreboding strings and vocal melodies, and leading into Art Decade's really synthetic coded tone. Like, it ups the synthesis tenfold with its synthetic drums, and its electronics are just used ad nauseum in such a beautiful way. You know, Brian Eno just did a masterful job with Bowie in pulling this thing together. And Bowie, it recruited all sorts of people behind the scenes. You know, dudes like Iggy Pop do backing vocals on this, and it's just cool to have this kind of camaraderie record to come out of such a tough time for Bowie, you know. And while the A-side is a really nice, fun track with some of Bowie's best work on it, I love the more honest feeling second side, because, you know, recovering from addiction is a hard thing to do. A lot of my favorite records by artists are ones that come out of such a harsh time. You know, With Teeth by Nine Inch Nails is another record that I feel like doesn't get a whole lot of credit, even though it was made in such a tough time for Trent. This and the rest of the Berlin Trilogy, I feel like, are a product of that. You know, I fucking love a lot of the lyrical nuance that's on here when it's here, you know. Always Crashing in the Same Car, the cadence of its verses, and how they enhance the texturizing of the groove in their own way.
I also love how Bowie forwent keeping with the same pace he was on Station to Station, and I love that he uses his voice in not just a way to deliver lyrics like on Be My Wife and Always Crashing in the Same Car, having, you know, ideas and concepts that tie into the shimmering A-side, but I like how on the B-side the use of vocals is more of just another instrument. It's another piece of a big orchestration, and I like that about it a lot.
And again, not to undercut the rest of the Berlin trilogy, I just think that this really kicked that off in a harmonious fashion.
Even if the collective public is still very much split on Lodger.
The first half of this record doesn't feel like a recovery record. It feels like a come down from a high, and the second half really feels like this just overwashing of dread. You know, Subterranean is a beautiful fucking closer. The string arrangements on that are so lush and work really well with the synthesizers that Eno and Bowie are putting down. It wasn't initially my favorite Bowie record, but the first time I listened to it, I was just floored by the atmosphere. This thing doesn't sound like it came from 1977. It feels so proto-futuristic. And I know the synthesized music was around a lot at the time. You know, groups like Kraftwerk and New were big at the time, but I feel like Bowie really reinterpreted his funkier sound into these electronically tinged atmospheres harmoniously. And that's not to say this record doesn't have a legacy to it, because a lot of people do view it as one of his best work, or some view it as his best work, but, you know, I still feel like it pales in the shadow of, like, Heroes, or Ziggy Stardust, or Hunky Dory. There's other Bowie records that people hold to a higher caliber than Low, and I just don't agree. I think that the songwriting is purposeful. I think the compositions are all meaningful and well done. I think the production is fantastic, you know, but that's kind of how I feel about it, you know. And this record, again, this record is beloved. I know for a period of time it was Trent Reznor's favorite Bowie record. Beck did an amazing version of Sound and Vision, which I will link the full version of in the description. It's like this elongated, just masturbatory celebration to the late king of weirdness, and it was nice to see a modern reinterpretation of one of Bowie's finest efforts. That's why I felt like I needed to tell you about it. In this segment, I will be talking about other records that I really view as classics myself, along with some games that I view as classics, and I hope you enjoy this first version of it. Everyone's going to have this kind of cold opening, and I'm going to be working in a little bit of history about each project before I discuss why it's my favorite, and a little bit about the legacy of it if I can. I'll probably talk about other Bowie records on this segment in the future, but I just wanted to kick off this segment with a Bowie record that is so good, so great, so everything I love about Bowie, but is a little bit under-discussed in my opinion. But I'm going to go. I've been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.